We've got Zerg here.
BTW.
This is the Throneroom stage. The grand final awaits. Destined for greatness. Neblime seems locked for a Protoss championship, and not even the Tyrant could slow his advance. Defeating Hit 'em Up 3-1 in his semi-final series reaffirmed his course for the Cup. Now, he is one victory away from that all-important Grand Final in a rematch of yesteryear's decider. Will it be down to the wire again? Or can our Aussie crack the most difficult matchup of them all? The corpse pile grows. He's left two Terran contenders shattered with his unpredictable play, enduring the steady hand of Aud 64 before biting it clean off. Make no mistake, Hamster is back, and he's looking poised to make his third grand final. In a matchup many believe to be highly favored for Zerg, can our Russian challenger send the last Protoss into the lower bracket? Or are we set to see the Dark Horse bolt? It's time to find out! Neblime! Hamster! Throneroom! Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Neblime versus Hamster, Day 6 of the Throne Room stage of Acropolis number 2. And I am Pronogo, and we are going to some interesting maps for this series today. Full disclosure, this series originally was going to be scheduled for tomorrow to pair nicely with the grudge match that awaits us. Tomorrow will be Hit 'em Up versus the Shambler, Elimination 2B. Check it out around 3 p.m. Eastern. But also, 3 p.m. Eastern. The day after that, on Sunday, we will have Top Ramen versus Ayud 64. Some TVT action there. We'll take a look at the bracket a little bit later. But today, we have a very special treat for those of you who have been around long enough, such as Luciferius, who has now been subscribed on our Twitch channel for a year. Shout out to him, by the way. That's 12 months, of course. You may remember a certain something called Ascension number 7. Neblime versus Hamster was the grand final, and it went all 7 maps to give Neblime his first premier championship within Cosmonarchy. Since then, Neblime has recapitulated that role as champion and gone straight in for a Zerg championship. He was Terran in Ascension 7, Zerg in Acropolis number 1, and now he could be the Protoss champion for the repeat, the three-peat. We'll see if that ends up coming to pass, as his old nemesis, Hamster, is now standing in his way. Let's talk about the map pool before we bring in Neblime for an interview. Hamster has declined the opportunity to talk, so we'll maybe pick his brains later on in the tournament, should he make it all the way to the grand final. Of course, that is what is on offer here. Winner goes to the grand final, loser goes to the lower final, and awaits whoever proceeds through the lower bracket. That being said, we got maps to look at. And you know what? Muspelheim getting banned by Neblime, okay, I can see that. Not very many people comfortable fighting Zerg on that map. The people who say they're comfortable on it tend to lose, with the exception of Ayud 64 so far. Hamster banning Decapitation, that has been a bit of a stronghold for Neblime so far. He beat Top Ramen on it in his series, although that was a 3-0. He beat, that was the only map he beat Ayud 64 on in groups, so that's worth pointing out back in the Battlements stage. And of course, he also defeated Hit 'em Up on it in a most recent series a week ago. So Hamster, removing that map, knows what Neblime likes. Neblime likes them 4-player maps. He likes them larger scale maps with the more distance between him and his opponent. And actually, that's a little bit at odds with our first pick. Yes, it's a 4-spawn map, but no, it does not have the distance we are used to Neblime going for. He has selected Check Stealer against Protoss. Remember when Hapsea picked Check Stealer against Jack Yelansky and ended up losing it in the Gauntlet Stage B? I remember that, and I remember saying, you know, almost everybody tells me Check Stealer's impossible to play Zerg on. Why would anybody pick that? Neblime is here not just to defeat Zerg as Protoss, a matchup everybody seems to agree is absolutely unplayable. Everybody except for Neblime, that is. He's going to try to take Hamster to task on a map that nobody seems to believe in themselves in against Zerg. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I just wanted to let you guys know that our starter is Check Stealer. I can't believe it. Hamster has responded with a pick of Near Impact. This is a map that has served him quite well. He won it versus the Shambler in a 3-0. In the 3-2 series he took narrowly against Ayud 64. He defeated Ayud on Near Impact as well. And of course, it makes total sense that then the bans that come out are going to be Spinal Tap banned by Neblime and Rage Slave banned by Hamster. Rage Slave is an interesting map because it is pretty aggro-oriented, but Zerg do tend to struggle on it, and so it makes sense for Hamster to get rid of it. Blackwater Bastion is Neblime's pick for our 3rd map, so we will be seeing a couple of 4-spawners in this series, no matter which way it goes. Genesis Y, a map Hamster has not dropped yet, another pick for him. Great vetoes coming out from him as well. and we will decide this series if we need to go to the full distance of 5 games. We'll decide it on Paradise, a map that Hamster also won fairly recently on with a Zoruse Rush. I was not expecting that one. That is, of course, a map selected by Neblime. So all 4 of the 4 spawners featured in here in some way. Decapitation banned by Hamster, the other 3 4 spawners selected by Neblime. We gotta pick his brains about that. We gotta ask him some questions. We gotta bring the man in and talk to him. That's right, Neblime. You're gonna be now talking to us about Check Stealer. What the hell are you thinking picking this map, my man? And how the hell are you ahead of your series against Hamster?
Well, I was wondering if you would ask, and I cannot reveal the trade secrets, can I now? You're gonna have to wait and see the match, rather. You know, if I just tell you every strat I'm planning on every map, isn't it a bit of a disadvantage?
Yep.
I mean, how good is Hamster's English? Can he sort of translate the spoken word?
Oh, I'm sure he can sort of understand it, but he did need translators.
So if I say something one base monument of sin, you know, he'll get the idea.
Yeah, right. He'll be like, oh yes, I see the Star Sovereign, comrade. Okay, so there's going to be some interesting strats planned for this map. I can already tell you. I will say I'm looking forward to this matchup in general. I'm even more so mouthwatering at the prospect of you on Check Stealer versus Zerg, because you've been one of the few voices that says, why is everybody freaking out about PvZ? I'll just beat him. And you did defeat Hit 'em Up with 2 games, you know? It did happen. I mean, I think everybody can see maybe there was a bit of a contest there where there was a few mistakes made by the opposition that maybe didn't show how powerful the matchup can actually be. But you can't argue with the results per se. I mean, you can try to, and many people do. But I choose to not argue with the results and instead say, you know what, Neblime, you won versus Zerg so far. Now you're finally arrived at the logical conclusion of this tournament, facing a Zerg in a best of 5. And not only are you undeterred by the fact that everybody else keeps telling you that this is an unplayable matchup, at least that's how it seems to me. It doesn't seem like you're quite perturbed by that. Not only that, you also picked the map that everybody says is the hardest to play against Zergon. So I guess either you got a Death Wish or you just got a Gigabrain plan and you're seeing what nobody else is. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. And I guess that brings me to the broader question of this is, sure, I pigeonholed immediately on Check Stealer, but how are you feeling about the matchup versus Zerg? Are you confident? Do you feel like you've got this grand final on lock?
Yeah, for sure. It's just what I said to Vic in that other interview, though. You can't just sit here going like, this matchup's so unfair, you know, you gotta just focus on your own play, and that's what I've been doing, like, this whole tournament, I guess. You know, I don't know if I mentioned before the last match, I'd played, like, you know, 100 games that week or whatever. I think I did more the week leading up to this, so, you know, it's just a matter of preparation. You can't, well, maybe in this scenario I can try and prevail upon you to change the balance, but generally speaking, you can't change the balance of the game as easily as you can work on your own skills, so I just try and focus on that.
Okay. So you remain stolid in the face of what Hamster has selected then? Because I remember you mentioning you don't like Genesis Y. You try to avoid those 2 spawn maps, broadly speaking. And Genesis Y has been a bit of a pain point. But Hamster, he has not lost a Near Impact or Genesis Y match since. Let's see. Near Impact was defeated. He was defeated by Top Ramen in Battlement stage. But other than that, every match on Near Impact has gone to him, and every match, regardless of Battlements or this, has gone his way on Genesis Y. So he's looking pretty strong on those maps. How are you feeling about that matchup? Should it go to, say, for example, Gen Y? That's if you avoid defeating him in 3 maps, of course. How are you feeling about the matchup on 2 spawners?
Yeah, obviously everyone knows Genesis Y is my anathema, and he's very wise to cancel Decapitation, because I do like that map. Yes. I'm not sure how to feel about 4 spawns, you know, because I feel like stylistically 4 spawns always benefit me, but obviously as the matchup goes, Zerg is better off the more space and the more bases there are. So it's hard to say. You know, I think Hamster also has like a bit of a different style than other Zerg, so it is hard to call. But like I think you're right that Near Impact is a good call for Zerg. I think it's definitely a pretty good map for Zerg. I mean, I would have banned it and Genesis Y after the maps I have banned.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's right. You end up getting rid of Muspelheim, you get rid of Spinal Tap. The Spinal Tap one makes total sense to me stylistically for you and also because of the matchup. And I feel like Muspelheim is probably more the matchup. Yeah, sure, it's a 2-spawn map and you prefer the 4s, but what about that stands out to you as being so difficult? Do you just, for somebody who like immediately went mass drop a Cantor, It doesn't seem like something that would be super difficult for you to pivot into if they take that back island base or something. But you just don't want the middle of the map. Then is that mostly where the misgivings of that map come in? He's gone.
Is not wise against Zerg
Oh, there you
because. Oh, sorry, did I drop
Yeah,
out?
yeah,
I was
yeah.
going to say, getting a bunch of envoys and flying around Vicantors is not a good idea against Zerg, because Nefracors will easily chase them down. So that's not really an option. And I feel like on Muspelheim, Zerg can quite easily get into Lakitalisk, and not only are they going to be able to defend their 3 bases, they can easily threaten you as well, because if you're pushed back into your base, which is often unavoidable against Zerg, it's very, very dangerous to have Lakitalisk pushing in that narrow area as well. So yeah, obviously, like, you know, Cantor going to be good on that map compared to others, but it's just a tough thing versus Zerg in general. So you don't really want to do that, honestly.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we go to Blackwater Bastion for Game 3. That's a guaranteed one, and I'm sure you're happy about that because
I
not
just like that map.
You know, that's
like I said, I have this conflict between 4-player maps or not, but I just like Blackwater. I think I could win there.
Right, yeah. And then, of course, our decider would be Paradise. So, I mean, you're talking about this conflict of 4-spawn maps. That's the only ones you picked. So you're happy about those. It must be.
Yeah, again, I do feel like it's a solid pick versus, to be honest, but I also just kind of like it, and I like playing on it. So it is interesting, isn't it? Hamster picked two players, but I think obviously Genesis-wise just going to be good against me, because I just suffer on that map. And Near Impact, I do think is a good pick for Zerg. If we put aside this 2-player versus 4-player debate, just in general, it seems quite beneficial for Zerg.
Yeah. I feel like both parties of this veto are probably as happy as they can realistically be, since you guys banned maps that make sense to ban, and y'all were able to pick the ones that you really wanted. With the possible change of Check Stealer, like, I have no idea how that one's going to play out. That's going to be very interesting. So that's the real curveball in this set that's just making me more excited about it.
I should have banned Genesis Y, man. He wouldn't have picked Muspelheim, would he? Well, that's all right.
Well, maybe.
I'll survive.
Maybe now he's listening to this, translating it, you know, and then saying, I will pick it next time, Neblime.
Next time he'll be back for the grand finals, will he?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people seem to think so. I mean, Hit 'em Up has been in the chat already saying, looking forward to who I'm dismantling in the grand final, something like that. Maybe he's only said facing. I might be putting words in his mouth.
Well,
who I will smash. There you go. That's so I was the right idea.
I did want to talk about Hamster's run so far, because he's had a pretty impressive run through here, especially beating EUD. I want to say he's like, in the interview before the boxing match, he's like the quiet guy, and you're like, wait, who's this guy? Like, is he even a boxer? Where'd they get him from? And he's very polite. He's just like, hello. And then he just dismantles his opponent. Absolutely smashes them. So I don't know. He's kind of like the quiet one who is going to do something violent. So you got to respect him as a player for sure. And I don't think I haven't expected such a solid win against EUD in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild, like the 3-2, the way that we got here, the fact that Hamster wins on Paradise with the Zoryus.
Yeah. Well, look, I feel like it was sort of a throwing game before, so I feel like it's not that bad of a 3-2. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, I think the thing that might struggle you if you ever go back and watch that set is that the first game was like Hamster super far ahead, didn't close versus the Exodia comp. And then second game looked like it might have been leaning towards that, but he was even more far ahead, so there was even more work to throw that game. But we had a hash, so we had to redo. And the redo was much more decisive in Hamster's favor, where he just pushed in with Lakers. So he's definitely, like, I feel like he's really run the gamut of early game Zerg strategies in a way that most other Zergs really don't even bother trying, right? They go for just mass backs and they wrap it up there, which is fine. Like, I'm not criticizing that play style, but I do think that the unpredictability will give Hamster the opportunities that other Zergs choose to not believe in almost. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, why can't I just attack you at this magic timing with Lakers? And like, oh, you didn't make detection this time? I got you then. So all stuff like that can absolutely happen, and it's pretty cool to see. He's definitely a player with a style unto his own, and like you mentioned, very polite, mild-mannered, and like, I still remember in Ascension 6 when he was on his run, and that was way back, but he defeated Hepsea in I think it was the lower bracket, and it was done in such a way. Oh no, I guess I'm thinking of the upper bracket. Anyway, he defeats Hapsea, and he does so with a 3-0. But the first match is on high water, where he just like blind Nath rushes, and it doesn't look like it's possible to stop that. Like Hapsea hasn't figured out the counter, if their counter did even exist, and Hamster just chooses not to use that strategy because he's like, no, it would be boring if I won that way all the time. I'm just going to change.
That's what I always say about Hamster. You know, he's here to show some cool stuff. I don't know if he's here to win or not. Maybe he's changed his mind and he is here to win today. I don't know, but in general, I feel like he comes in and shows the best of the game. I'm here to show the worst of the game, man. I just want victory.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. I'm excited to see what Hamster's been cooking up and what his response to your Check Stealer surprise pick is going to end up being. Any closing thoughts before we get into your series, Neblime?
No, none. My mind is empty.
Your mind is empty, but your wins cannot remain empty. I mean, not that they've been empty, but you know what I mean. Your wins today can't be empty. You gotta get on the board. You gotta smash Hamster, and Hamster's gotta smash you. I think that's just the way of the warrior here. So. Oh
yeah, it's a sad day actually, because once again, we have to eliminate one or the other of each other. It was very sad in Acropolis 1. You know, we didn't really want to do it. You know.
Oh yes, that was the semifinal. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but alas, you have to do it. And, you know, even going back to the grand final of Ascension, you know, because the thing is, Hamster was like my main practice partner to learn Zerg. We played so many games, and so, you know, knew his PvC like back to front. Not so much with my Protoss play, I suppose, but still, you know, he's been a big practice partner and friend, so it's very sad to have to go into battle against him, but here we are.
Here we are, yeah. Reluctant battle brothers turning their swords on each other. We'll see if the Zerg sword that's all spiny and drippy and full of acid is better than the Protoss sword, which is much more honorable.
The honorable side blade.
Yes, that's right. We'll see which one it is. All right, my man. I am looking forward to this matchup. So I say we get right into it, and thanks for the interview. GLHF, DH. That's it. Bye. All right, so we're going to get our readies in order. And see what our players are thinking. It's going to be Check Stealer to start. Not what I was expecting whatsoever. And we're getting into it, boys. I hope you guys are excited. Neblime versus Hamster. Almost called him the Hamster. And you know what? I think you can understand why. Whenever it's Hamster versus the Shambler, I struggle quite a bit. Let's get into it, boys. We've got Neblime in the top left as the Red Terran. Well, it's Vivid Red and Protoss, so I was doubly wrong. Hamster in the bottom left as the Russian Green Zerg. And we have vertical spawns, which to me, it really does make sense that we would get a matchup like this on Check Stealer. Vertical spawns are actually, in a sleeper kind of way, easier to macro out of than horizontal spawns. Than cross spawns. Because in cross spawns, you don't exactly know where your enemy is going to be coming from. But on vertical ones, it's the right little distance there. Like horizontal is a little bit shorter for rush. So vertical preserves some distance on the rush. And then on the other side of the vertical thing is you kind of know which angle your enemy is going to attack you from in the early stages of the game. So this could actually end up being a bit of a macro opener. All right, we've got a pool opening here for Hamster. He will be going for early aggression, and it is a 2-gate opener, which is, you know, honestly for Neblime, that's a bit different because he often does go gate into lattice. But for everybody else, all the other Protoss players, this is the meta opener, no matter your matchup, pretty much. So on Check Stealer, it can be a little bit different. You can get into some more antics. Looks like Hamster will be box scouting, and he will scout his opponent last as Neblime arrives with the not quite pylon scout, but not quite far removed from it. It doesn't look like it. Might have been a gateway scout. Larvosk already up and running with a single pair of Zeths actually being made. So that might actually be a bit of a fake, with Neblime already worried. He's going to go ahead and drop the Warden. He scouted the Larvosk. He scouted the eggs already being popped through. Interesting stuff. Okay, we'll see if Neblime decides to cancel this. His scout is still kind of in the area, but I guess the Zeths are going to end up leaving the building and slipping the net. So I don't know. I feel like Neblime is going to be a little bit behind as a result of going for that Warden, but it's not super consequential. He's massing up Legionnaires. He has a different strategy in mind for spending his gas down, and there goes the first victim. Hamster getting a Zeth inside the base area is not too shabby whatsoever. He would have loved to have a second one just so that he could have seen what's going on. You can see him sort of skirting the sort of extremities in this position. He is going to scout a little bit too far forward and lose it. I was going to say if he kept that alive, he could have disrupted taking the bottom base very early on, which kind of isolates exactly where the enemy is going to be coming from. Now, Hamster did decide to go into Quaz before even seeing the Legionnaires, but now we've got 5-6 Legionnaires plus the Scribe. Hamster needs to respect this. He's got another pair of Quaz hatching. He's going to go up to 7, but they're not all in one spot. Now, what is his focus fire going to be? He's using hit scan attackers, which don't have the projectile out of sync move that sometimes plagues projectile units from fighting against Legionnaires. When they teleport, they miss, the projectile essentially misses them. But already, the Quaz have been hunted down. We've got only 2 more pairs being made, 1 more still going. Scribe goes down, 1 Legionnaire going down, a lot of workers being killed right now, and not that much money in the bank either, as more Legionnaires are streaming across the map. Now, a bunch of Quads have been activated here, but it's not enough. No focus fire done, and look at that, just like that, Neblime proving that Legionnaires have a purpose. And you know what? It's even worse than that. You can beat Zergon Check Stealer. All you need is some early gateway units. Hamster maybe dropping the ball a little bit on the focus on working on the military count, trying to get some kind of defensive play happening. He did scout the 2 gate for quite a while and didn't really have a good response to it. I think as soon as you see Legionnaires, you got to worry to yourself and wonder to yourself, what exactly are we up against? But no matter. This is a best of 5. It's going to take more than just a few cheeky Legionnaires to close Hamster out of here, or at least it would seem so. Near Impact up next, waiting for our second round. It's all ready here. Guys, I haven't even updated the overlay yet, and you guys are already ready. They want to get right back into it, so we'll just go ahead and update it in real time. It's going to be Hamster, the top left, Russian green, Zerg. Neblime, bottom right. Ooh, Alice blue Protoss? Yeah, okay, I got one right. I got one right, and I didn't call him Terran this time, so that helps. I hope you guys are excited. I mean, we didn't really get to see what the game plan for Neblime was on Check Stealer, but that just kind of means that he can float it as a pick and be somewhat comfortable about it. So already something that is worth pointing out as we put his 1 on the board for you guys watching at home. Looks like this will be a more conventional opener for both players. Neblime, I doubt, will be going into the Legionnaire style, but it is another 8 pool from Hamster, so that's a little bit interesting. I wasn't expecting that response here. I'm inclined to agree with Jujic in the chat, who says nerf Protoss. I think clearly they are overpowered. But yeah, it's worth pointing out that the Warden is the cost of 2 Legionnaires. Now, your throughput is a little bit slow with only 2 gates, but, it is a pretty safe opener. Neblime going to be flexing into the lattice early on here, so we're already seeing some varying variation. Yes, exactly. I'm a professional, guys. I do this for a living. Wink. You can contribute to my living on coffee.com/Brunago7. We have the lattice coming out here, and that is absolutely going to change up what Hamster's rule set is going to be. The Larvosk nearly completing for our Zerg player. Reeling from that early loss. Listen, there were some early losses that he faced against AUD64. I'm thinking about that Spinal Tap game, which was a throw of a similar kind of variety, where there wasn't really that much going for him when it came to the military count. Now, this Scribe is being annoying, but it is threatening for a potential follow-up as the Quaz start to chase that Scribe down. It will actually cost Neblime the Scribe. He waited around a little bit too long, and so the Ecclesia start not really going to be able to capitalize on that. It's surprising what you can accomplish versus like 1 pair of Quaz or 1 pair of Zeths with a Scribe and an Ecclesiast. If you guys have never seen stuff like that happen before, I'm just going to throw that one out there. It is technically feasible. Remember also that the Vassal must be within attack range of the Ecclesiast's proc range on its passive, so they together can also be quite good in early skirmishes before you get to that critical mass of ranged units that can just pop the Vassals out of commission immediately. Second, oh, that's a Stargate! 1 base Stargate from Neblime. He's going for it, boys. Pair of Zeths on the way just to scout. And a Zorka Shroud immediately. Versus Lattice, this does mean that the Vassal's going to scout this, right? But if you get the Zorkas up, honestly, I think that forces a completely different set of responses for Neblime. He almost needs to go, Pedoptus or something. Yeah, you can go Land Effect, I guess, and disable them, but It's not exactly... Oh, this is big. Hamster getting deep enough in to actually see that that's a Stargate coming, as well as, of course, the presence of the lattice. It taps off on the Vassal for a little bit. I don't know if Neblime scouted and saw that was a shroud. He might assume it's a den or something. If he didn't click on it, he doesn't know. And the Zeth even managing to get out after, adding insult to injury, a full scout of what Neblime's got on offer. Shroud going to continue, though. He's not canceling it. He's not going to pivot into the den after all. And here comes the Vassal for a second look. We'll definitely confirm what's going on. It's going to be a speedy uptick towards Gladius. And to be clear, nothing that Hamster has right now between the Shroud and the Pool is going to be effective versus the Gladius. He's going to be trying to win on the ground game with 3 fast Lakes, push across the map, eviscerate the ground army, and hopefully just ignore the Gladius before they get too high. We've already got an embassy starting up. Neblime clearly aware of the potential for burrowed units to ruin his day. If they burrow, there's no detection, the balls of the Gladius immediately dissipate because they can't attack it. And so the Lake is controlling the ground, can even preserve Quaz but in a critical mass. We'll see if Hamster has already practiced that kind of strat. It's a tight sort of dance to try to make that kind of thing happen. A Hydrith then follow up after the expansion coming out from Hamster. This feels like a very comprehensive build order opener for our Zerg player, in the sense that he's thought of these kinds of options and he knows that it's flexible enough. He's going to hemorrhage a few Zets here. A little bit unfortunate. Reveals the Gladius. He knows what's going on. There's the burrow. No Zets to stand on top to stop the reveal from coming in. There we go. Coming on in there. But a few regrettably missing spines stop any Protoss casualties. So the Lakes start to fall away. What's the reaction so far? Just kind of going into a more defensive posture. Not exactly what I was maybe hoping for. I feel like the Zets could have just run across and started wreaking havoc inside the main base, at least pinching off like a dozen of them. But the Quas are out in full force with the attempt of slowing the Gladius. There's only one of them here. Remember, there's a second one moving its way through the map. Gonna be a little bit before it gets there. Yeah, you can see the burrow attempt, but obviously with the rest of the units not burrowed, it's not really going to help. He needs to go ahead and try to burrow those, but no. Looks like maybe it's just going to be enough as it is. Just doing his best. Just doing his best. Remember, those units are going to get very, very bruised, and even one of them goes down at the end of the day. We got 2 Gladiuses now on the field. He's going to dive onto it with the one set of Quas. The longer that these fights go on, the more favor it's going to be for Neblime, but the Hydras are starting to come out. 5 more in production. A couple on the field already. That's definitely going to pack a bit of a punch. You can see the Gladius already being managed right now. More Hydras being made. Nice burrow on some of those afflicted units. That's obviously going to short-circuit the bounces. Canceling the shield regen on multiple of these Gladiuses. Dragging in the ground army. One Zealot going down. Behind this, a Nexus is on the way. It actually finished. We've got a Warden for defense in the mineral line already. This feels very down to the wire. The Lakers can afford to tank, especially with no detection over in this area. And now the contain is broken. Neblime, he's actually taken too long. I feel like at this point, oh, those Hydras could have sniped one of the Gladius, but instead they just finished the job on the ground army. A very small, piddling force here for the Protoss player. He does have a witness with the force, but it's actually, no, it's out of sync. It's not going to go ahead and capitalize on this opportunity. But it doesn't look like Hamster's being particularly active either. Gladiuses really need to stop charging in somewhat recklessly here. Oh, the Hydra count is so high, and there's only 3 Gladius, all of which are very, very bruised. 2 of them are on death's door as it stands. We've got a Quaz patrolling out to the north. I thought maybe that would have been an opportunity for a hidden third base or something from Hamster, but he's not going for that. Ski back on the way. He wants the Bactylisk so that he can continue to push the Protoss army back. Feels like the Zerg are looking pretty solid right now. But can Hamster finish the job? He has had difficulty closing out games with apparent leads in the past. Neblime going for the 1-base gambit. It does stack up the Gladius count. Like, none of them have died, even though many of them are brittle. It just means that one engagement could swing massively in the Zerg's favor. He might not even be making the ski back for the purposes of backs, by the way. He could be going for skiths. It's an outside chance. Most Zergs do not believe in the skith, and I'm not necessarily criticizing that. They are units that can feel very, very weak for the cost that you put into them. But for now, just kind of posturing. The Witness now returns. Avaleth here to snipe it. Hamster does have all of the tools that he needs. Does he see this? Does he see the shimmer? It doesn't look like he does. In fact, the Avaleth is moving further back up into the main. He's looking around for where the Witness is. Little does he know, it's just standing there at his choke. But Neblime has been pretty laissez-faire with his placement, and his Cavalier movement of the Witness is going to get him harassed. 4 Gladius strong. so heavily wounded. A couple of Bactylisks starting to morph. 6 of them, in fact, actually. These two are going to end up taking a lot of hits. Good cancel, gets some of his money back as one of those Hydras does fall. Up to 5 Gladius trying to abuse this ledge right now. We know a Spraith can outrange this. Another witness fresh from the embassy. One of them sort of idling in the natural. I don't hate it because it is going to stop a Lake's counter push, but Neblime just might not know this. He actually has total domain, like total map control. That might change pretty soon, though. Hydra's Bactyls, 1 Hydra goes down, softening up the shields and such for the Protoss units, but they're pretty durable as of right now. Many more Bactylisks on the way. And again, the Ovolith can absolutely get rid of some of that detection, which is very important versus the Lakers. Like, those Lakers, we're going to get 3 more added to them. The ground army is not going to be able to compete. Another witness going down. Cavalier indeed. Neblime, reckless with his detection. Still has 1 in the bank and is making another one. So we shouldn't really see that be critical in the sense of he's not going to lose a fight because of it, but he's not going to know what Hamster's planning after that. So let's keep an eye on that production tab, see what Hamster is planning, see if he's going for anything a little bit sneaky. The Gladius count is rising, but now it's kind of frozen. We've got 6 of them heading into the main. There's already 3 Spraiths. That's going to slow them down enough for units to spawn in. And most crucially, there's nothing here that can hold what Hamster is cooking up. Admittedly, the front line is looking a little bit dour, so the engram might end up popping off here. Oh, there's the detection. The witness almost going down. Remember, there's another one kind of lurking somewhere in this area. No, none of the Lakers have actually fallen just yet. There's the Ovolith that can be focused down to give Neblime a little bit of a lease on life. Instead, it body blocks that engram shot, but there's not going to be quite enough to get rid of everything else. Now, poor targeting from that Spraith means that those Gladiuses are going to stay alive. The engram finally falling. The workers pulling off the line. Not versus Lake is not what you want to do. Neblime almost certainly going to end up losing all of his workers before really incurring too much economic damage over here. Down to 5 Spraiths. That will continue to dwindle. 1 Exemplar is out. It might be able to manage this count. Hamster pushing deeper in as the Gladiuses try to pop off. They've killed a bunch of the Spraiths. We've got Hydras being made back at home. But now, with no power onto that Warden, the Lakers are surging past the rest of the forces, getting up close and personal. One of them goes down, but the Zealots are going to be made mincemeat of. And that Exemplar is dangerously low. The Gladiuses are down to 4 and dropping further. It's not a fast defeat for Neblime, but it is a defeat for Neblime. His last pylon powering so many of those things. It's over. Hamster on the board, takes his own map pick and sends us to Blackwater Bastion, knowing full well that Genesis Y is going to be played. Neblime has to think about things now. Hamster has the opportunity to force a Game 5, even if Blackwater Bastion doesn't go his way. That's where we're going next. I have to agree with Hapsea in the chat. Protoss Imba needs to be nerfed. That was a tight move, though. Neblime clearly reeling from the decision to pivot in, maybe feeling like he was in need of pushing in a little bit further with those Gladiuses. If they were at home, that's a very, very different situation. But speaking of different situations, have I got one here for you guys. Blackwater Bastion is live. It's Hamster's Russian Green Zerg in the top left. Harvesting Vespene enough to know we won't be seeing an 8 pool. Neblime gunning for it. Cross positions, bottom right. He is the Maroon Protoss. Oh, it's blood. I should have known. It's all right. It's all right. We got this. So there it is. Evidence of a different build for Hamster already. His pool will come after the Larvosk. Assuming it is a pool first. I mean, it's a 4-spot map, and Hamster has done Shroud openings before. But I'm going to be going on a wild guess and say that's not what we're going to see. In fact, we could even end up seeing... No, it will be pool first. No, he's actually going to risk it. Lattice opener for Neblime, so he's done a different build order all 3 games so far. Hamster going for a Larvosk all the way before he gets his pool. So... interesting stuff here. I have seen some people postulating as to whether or not it's possible to go for like Hydrith Den after Larvosk or something like that. It's a lot of gas, right? It's 200 Vespene total. It's not an easy thing to pull off. But I do think that there's a possibility for somebody to make it work. And if you were going to make it work as a bit of a gamble, 4-spawn map happened to be cross-spawn, could have worked out, potentially. That gives you the larva and the higher tier units. But Hamster going to be gunning for the pool. He's keeping it normal, keeping it classy. Idle first for Neblime. Another Kagrant on the way. Looks like the limited gas harvesting so far will be reserved for additional production. Worth noting he's still 5 returns out, so we're going to be waiting a little bit before that second Larvos kicks off. But a couple of quads being made. Third lattice. Okay. So Hamster wants to stay and watch what that first unit actually is, but he seems to be popping away before he can see it. If they're still being harvesting Vespene, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not vassals, right? And you have to factor that in at some point. Now, the Scribe does end up getting a pretty good scout, but that's okay. At the end of the day, the quads are going to go ahead and put it down. And he sees that a little bit of Vespene is still being harvested. He didn't see the status of the pool, but very, very unlikely that you've got a second Kagrant earmarked for a Larvosk, and then you also have your pool upgrading, right? Like, the gas doesn't exist in the early game for that to happen. Or maybe it narrowly does, but it would be... They would be doing something instead of waiting, right? So, yeah. Neblime, not quite sure what his opponent is doing, but now we got a little bit more gas. There's the Spraith I was predicting. Shout out to those Spraiths, by the way. I don't know if Neblime expected Hamster to already have those, but a lot of that is down to the single Zethracore that makes it into the base to scout that it is a pool opening. Like, that's not what you would expect to be happening here. But the Spraith coming, Hydrith Den coming, we're already going to be seeing Hamster kind of default into a more brawly style, a little bit less committal. And the Spraith is going to finish with more than enough time to dissuade that vassal from attacking in. So, no worries there. Another vassal ends up leaving. A couple of Zeths getting picked off by the idols. And Neblime will have a very pool-proof army, already forcing Hamster to move into the Hydrith instead. And on one base as well. So, you know, there's something to be said for whether or not your opponent's going to have what he needs to deal with what Neblime is soldiering on with. In fact, an idle vassal build seems to be the name of the game for Neblime. He's not really going to be pivoting into the mid game here. This seems to be a thought of strategy. You know, he wants to get us to Genesis Y real quick so he can just get it over with kind of deal. That's the vibe I'm getting. 4 Hydras on the way. Remember the pool unit struggle versus idols. We've got a 4th one joining them as well. I feel like Hamster's going to be able to hold this, but I could be wrong, especially if some of these eggs get heckled down before. You can see the engagement coming in here. Nice body blocking with that Zethracore, inadvertent or otherwise. More Zeths coming on in. Try to get some good damage down to those idols. And looks like the Hydras will end up finishing off as a result. And this is where the hold is going to come in, right? All the Hamster really needed to do was delay a little bit here. Neblime starting to lose some of his idols. They are going to get speed boosted courtesy of the vassals falling, but that only helps them move and reposition. It does not help them attack. Now still, more reinforcements coming in. He is softening up and splashing down some of these Hydras. If more weren't hatching right now, I'd give him a chance to get some more DPS down. But his Nexus comes down behind it all. He's still providing Hamster a little bit of a scare. This Kager will obviously be turned into a Larvosk once the push is fully held and dissuaded. And we've got a number of those ever-important Protoss units coming across. I do love to see the idol moves. We'll see what Neblime wants to expand his production with that pylon a little bit later. Getting his Nexus down before the Zerg opponent. Keeping up to a worker advantage. All this stuff is very good for Neblime. He does definitely have the tempo, courtesy of this triple lattice opener. He's already adding an engram back at home, so he kind of recognizes that there's a chance that Hamster decides to go for a military commit. And the Shroud afterwards, as well as the Spraith, not a Larvosk. I guess I didn't count on Hamster worrying too much about an air switch, but indeed it could happen, and we do have 5 vassals on the way. Might try to pick off this Larvosk off to the side. Yeah, he's trying to find a blind spot in the defenses, but so far not going to be too good. He did scout the Zorkiz, though. All good stuff for our Protoss player. And the fact, when you scout a Zorkiz instead of, like, plans to take an expansion, you know, this idol's going to come up here, and I think that's a bad rally, actually, but it might have been offered an opportunity to scout the natural. A second engram and a Matrix. Dude, Neblime is gaming. Neblime is going to be camping out on 2 bases for a little bit here. His vassal is kind of guarding the middle of the map. Sees a nice Iroquois. He'll just dog it for a little bit here. Switching into gateways after this. Oh, Dracodons. Okay, he's trying to get a little bit of a brawling composition himself, recognizing that his idols alone won't be able to deal enough damage to the Hydras. And I guess he also wants to be able to snipe Lakes if need be, although I think the gateways came after, or before the scout. Like, the scout on the Zorkas came after. He's going to come back in, see that there's additional sprays where that came from. Just confirming. He'll end up losing a couple of vassals to it. He would love to confirm whether or not there's an expansion, but I think based on that, he can definitely expect that. Look at that, the Izira Corps coming in and scouting the Fortress of Solitude that Neblime is building. Got some golems on the way as well. Ecclesiasts to keep them charged. A lot of gateways here. Neblime sticking to tier 1. Vassal's going to confirm the presence of the hatch. See that the army is still mostly at home as well. That's a pretty big scalp to find, actually. Unfortunately, doesn't get away with the scouts, but the idea was there. Five gate, 3 lattice. Neblime, what are you cooking, man? He's got some idea. He's gunning for a big mass of golems. Perhaps trying to preempt the Bactalisk switch. Ski Bact is on the way. Hamster could be doing that. He obviously has the massive Hydras. You know, golems don't suck versus Lakes either. You can keep them charged up enough. Izira Corps just still hanging out. Flexing. Golem, Ecclesiast, etc., etc. Plenty of shield restore, and now, look at that. Grand Library. That's either for Cantavis or for something else entirely. I've heard tales of Golem Herald. Golem Herald Ecclesiast, the sustained comp of the century. You thought Exodia was powerful. It's going to be a double Lakes drop. Might end up sowing some discord in the main base of Neblime. By the way, did you know you can join our Discord? It's pretty epic. You get to talk balance and other such very exciting things with all of our Discord members. It's great. 5 Lake is being made behind this. A bit of a move out here from Neblime, who wants to see if he can just step on find the right timing where the Hydras are turning into Bacts, right? It's actually going to be a couple of skits, interestingly enough. I'm not sure what units he's going to have at home to deal with this. His rallies are kind of massing up at the doorstep, so it might open himself up to a counterattack. Neblime usually pretty good at watching the minimap. Right now, just a lot of positioning here for Neblime, a lot of posturing. There come the Lake is. The reaction is pretty quick. He's gonna have to pull his homies pretty far. He drops the embassy first, like, you know what? Screw this. Now, you gotta watch out. What is his reaction here? He had a couple of golems coming out. I feel like this is more discoordinated than I'm used to seeing Neblime. He's gonna lose a few workers for it. Still with a nominal advantage for the workers. Here comes the scoop up. All right, workers back to work. That definitely bought a lot of time for Hamster to just sort of get his third base up and running kind of uncontested. We saw how threatening that army really was. Nexus off center. Hamster would do a favor to Neblime for canceling that. Oh my god! Hamster, no! Neblime, no? What the what the hell? Okay, well, one of them gets away because Neblime decided to right-click. I don't know what was going on there. Neblime going to go ahead and surge forward. This is where more of the Lakes are. He's going for an Argosy behind this as well as a Herald. His witness only now begins. Feels like maybe a bit of a missed opportunity there. Charging forward, courtesy of one of the fallen Ecclesiasts. His Golem's going to get a lot of healing from the Ecclesiast ball in the back. Remember the splash damage, though. Nice amount of attack speed increase there. But I feel like now the splash damage is starting to eat away at them. The Ecclesiasts overstayed. He had no idea how many Lakes were in that army. His witness just did not hit fast enough, and I feel like that was a very tight army battle that if Neblime decided to pull away from after the first engagement, I would have favored him in. There goes the cancel. It will be canceled indeed. Oh, the Herald dying, or getting very close to dying. Here comes the Skith Horde. 14 of them. Remember that Argosy. Where is that Argosy? Up here. Engrams are going to make short work of the skits if they decide to move to the natural. Hamster is presumably not going to allow that. So instead he's going to pivot over into the bottom right. You can see the force here from Neblime. He's trying to see what he can do. Oh, golems I feel like would never actually die. I don't know. It's not looking too hot here for Neblime. What's his reaction to this? What's his counter to this? He has no storm? He has no real splash damage? The skits are just going to sit here and cause lost mining time. Okay, the idols are here now. Scouts the Argosy. It's not moving or making anything. It has not sprung to life. A bunch of idle workers up there at 12. What a bizarre game, right? Where Neblime is definitely feeling the chaos. Is he really about to go down on his own map pick? He's going to have to battle back on Genesis Y. I feel like there's no way that can be true. But the third base canceled. Already mining minerals here for Hamster by comparison. So economic advantage to the Zerg player. An Empyrean on the way. Neblime did set up a very potent composition. His golems are already back and running as well. Some of his workers not quite back to work. Got a worker up the top right third. And you can see, Hamster going to be considering the push. Remember, there's detection now. I'm not quite sure where they are, but there is detection somewhere. And the golems are going to go ahead and continue their duty, standing for as long as possible, courtesy of the Matrix. That's also where one of the witnesses is. Splash damage trying to dissuade the air stack from really happening. The workers are pulled, but the Lakers are still at large, and now the evacuation has to happen as the natural is cracked. Neblime, down a considerable amount of workers, no longer mining from his natural. Feels like he's been backed into a corner. An Empyrean is about to fly out, but there's not that much for it to escort into the sun. I don't know what Neblime can do with this position. I'm going to go ahead and guess not a whole lot. At least the skits will be made short work of. Another base starting up for Hamster, a tier 2 as well. We have seen a little bit of hesitancy sometimes for him. I can't imagine it really costing him too much here. We're talking about a depleted main base for Neblime. That is how dire his eco is. He has almost no income. He's making one scribe and one Empyrean. He can't even make a Nexus. His single vassal will see what's going on over here. It will be thoroughly dismayed. And his scribe will even see 12 o'clock starting. This might force a GG. Yeah, he's going to call it. He sees that the game is there. Hamster leaves him 1G in response. And Hamster is up 2-1. Neblime had some legs with that composition, but he did stick around for a very long time in that one Lake is fight north of his third. Without that, I wonder, would we really have seen such a decisive victory later on in the set? Nonetheless, we go to Genesis Y, back against the wall for Neblime. Hamster, he could be making history, repeating his Ascension 6 run as a player who made it all the way to the grand final, only to be knocked down by whoever came up over there. This is series point for Hamster, and we've already got the readies. Let's see what our Zerg player has cooking on Genesis Y, and perhaps more importantly, let's see what our Protoss player can do now that his back is against the wall. Hamster in the top right as our Russian green Zerg. Neblime in the bottom right, this time as the maroon Protoss. And it's a 6 pool from Hamster. He's going to try to close it off in style. You gotta love our guy. You gotta love our guy. Oh, he's going to stew in it. Aussie, Russian, and American internet combine to put us in a bit of a slideshow while we wait to see what the reaction will be. I mean, what better moment to have it happen? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I was about to suggest the same thing. At this point, I am very, very impressed with Hamster, I gotta say. And, we'll unpause in 3, 2, 1. And here we are. Back into it. Again, let's remember, boys. This is a goddamn 6-pool. Hamster with the advantage on a map that Neblime is not advantaged. Whew. My golly. My lord. My lord in heaven. We've got a very fast, aggressive strat. Will Hamster throw it on Spinal Tap like he did on Spinal Tap, right? Is that what we're going to see versus A64? Is Neblime even going to have the response necessary? Protoss can be more vulnerable to this sort of thing. Remember that one pylon, and there we go. Kagrant, 4th larva, well managed despite the technical issue. Hamster getting the timings exactly down for his extra pair of Zeths. Neblime's heart's gonna sink when these Zeths start to run on past. You know what? The fact that the Scribe delayed them a little bit is actually pretty cool. Instantly starting the Warden, instantly starting the Legionnaire. He needs every little thing he can get. A single Zeth has not joined the rest of the party just so it can disrupt the Scribe's interference, prevent any proxy shenanigans. Another pylon, redundancy at work. The Legionnaire is gonna be able to finish. The Warden might even be able to finish. He's got some nice little pathing with the saturation on the minerals down here. I'm seeing about Neblime. I'm seeing what his crisis response is down at the moment. Oh, dangerous game played with that Legionnaire. Already starting to see a potential drill in response. 2 Zethicores lay bloodied on the field. And a second gateway starting. Ecclesiast up and running now. Almost no chance Hamster can do damage. Ooh, he's trying to go after it. Does end up getting a little bit of damage onto the Legionnaire. But I don't think the Eco is going to be threatened whatsoever here. The Ecclesiast is going to prevent that. Doesn't even kill the Scribe. The follow-up is a Vornath Pond. What is Hamster planning? I guess he wants to push the V key. You know, this is where Neblime could end up losing a couple of these Legionnaires. You can see him being pretty aggro with the Legions. 3rd gateway. Really, so far in the series, Neblime has used Legionnaires to pretty good effect, you know? He won Check Stealer in like 3.5 minutes with them, and he's now held in a 6-pool with them as well. All right. Oh, it's Nathracores. That's interesting. So this is still the old Nathracor. Remember, on pre-release, there is a reworked Nathracor. Not going to be got by the same strategy this time around. One of the Legionnaires will end up falling. The other one should scout that the Vornath is done. And look at this. Ooh, maybe an opportunity missed there by Hamster to just double down onto attacking the... Oh, yeah, look at that. He even scouts the Naths. This is really good. I was going to say the Hamster might have been able to finish off one of the Ecclesiasts, but... The lattice starting, 4-gate. He pulls back away from the natural, doesn't want to even chance it. The Zeths, the Naths, the Quas. All 3 units that Hamster has to his name. The only other one that he's got is the Vorv. This Ecclesiast being very bold to move out here. Probably narrowly sees a little bit of the Nath shimmer, but I'm not sure that he is entirely aware. And look at this. The V key pushed. Vorvicor's on the way. The Scribe will be aware. Yeah, that Ecclesiast is almost certainly mincemeat if it ends up taking the fight, but it looks like it'll return home. And honestly, I know this looks like Neblime is going to hold with ease, but I have been routinely surprised by how powerful this Zerg army can be. So let's give him every advantage in the book so we go to game 5. But let's see what Hamster goes for. He's diving in. Great body blocking and great SimCity from Neblime as well, forcing a cancel on the attack. 4 dead Zeths, maybe 1 or 2 dead Vorvs. Looks like at least one ended up dying there. And the Gateway Army endures. A second Warden as well. Lattice not even really needed right now. Here comes another dive. 1 Zealot, 2 Zealots end up going down. Perhaps quite big here for our Zerg player. A Shroud follow-up as well as the Hatch coming in the natural. Hamster trying to posture aggressively. Still has managed to maintain some kind of economic tempo despite Neblime's significant worker lead. And Hamster going very heavy into military right now. Not that much on the way of the production. Hasn't been able to finish the job on any of these other units. So definitely not trading super cost efficiently, but look at that, a free Ecclesias. Nobody was going to say no to that. And now Neblime might have been caught unawares. This could be opportunity for a surround. In fact, Hamster was not expecting the army to come in from the north and not have anything else to chew on. Oh, some of his units getting blocked up by those minerals. Now massing up. He's got plenty more Zeths where that came from. His Shroud is now done. Been banking a little bit of money so he can grab 3 Lakes immediately. This starts to smell like near impact, making a couple of Vorvacors as well. Their debut, as well as the Nath, actually, in this series. At least so far as I can remember. And, you know, making the Vorvs right in the middle of the fight, it kind of makes sense here that Neblime's able to pick off a couple of them. Now, this might have bought a little bit of time for Hamster to get a superior position. He's going to dive onto the Drakodon. One of them going down. Still 2 remain. Plenty of Ecclesias where that came from. And the Zealots staying alive for so damn long. All of the Nathacors are torn asunder. Vorv's not quite able to do the job. But now the Lakes are out. 3 more pairs of Nats. One of them has already hatched. The Lake is going to deny the push. Neblime, plenty of workers to his name by comparison. He's not out of this just yet. He's seen that Hamster's willing to play down and dirty in the early game. Azorius for tanking. Drakodon's very, very good at dealing with that. One of them did get picked off earlier. 3 more just finished, so that is what Neblime is already pressuring with. Another Warden on the way as well. You can see a Zeth just kind of guarding the top left for an inevitable third base. And now the army kind of blindsided by this flank. Not really able to do too much here, though. So Neblime will continue to reposition. He doesn't have so many units guarding the front gates. This could be a rare opportunity for Hamster to go all in, but he has sometimes lacked that killer instinct. It looks like now he recognizes, wait, I can just set up shop here with my Lakes, and you can't really do much about it, now can you? Now moving even further forward. 1 Warden complete. He's not in range. Lakes galore. 3 of them continuing to do so much splash damage, but I think maybe Neblime is going to be able to crack this nut. The Nats can't stop the Zealots from landing on top of the Lakes to reveal them, and some battle workers even arrive at the very tail end. Not focused down. The last of the Zealots end up going, but hey, those scribes ended up finishing the job on the Lakes, not without purpose. At the same time, a couple of Nats flew in just to see what the scout was. We've got a Stargate, double Stargate on the way here for Neblime, as well as an embassy for that detection. Protoss looking ahead in this game. Hamster has not dropped the match on Genesis Y so far in this tournament. And wouldn't it be fitting for Neblime to force a decider? Avenge the spirit of Jack Yelansky once again. He ended the Hit 'em Up series on Paradise. He might end Hamster's series on the same damn map. It's not over yet, but it's looking so Protoss favored. Up 10 workers. Reposted all the attempts at harassment. No Hydra then to speak of for Hamster. Starting to get his static defense in order for the inevitable Gladius push. And the Witness is on the way to scout out exactly where Neblime might be able to get some good value. He's already dropping a third base. Look at that. In a few short moments, I believe we will be heading to that Game 5. What can Hamster do to change my mind? Adding circuits to the front is all well and dandy, but we're going to need to see some anti-air. The Hydra's then starting very late. Neblime going to be happy to see that. Nexus more than halfway complete. At the third. A third Stargate. Beautiful. Ovelot started Hamster seeing the Witness, or otherwise just simply knows that he must get it. He's actually delayed turning these into spraits for some time. Wants to maybe confirm what he's doing or save his minerals for a little bit longer. 3 Zorius on the way to spend down some of that mineral bank. Now the spraits come out, and at a very, very good time as well. Some of the gateway units continuing to posture. Could get isolated by those pools, but surprisingly, Hamster is not aware of that just yet. Not going to jump on it. Instead, going to go ahead and try to land the burrow. First Gladius arrives. No anti-air with this force. Remember, the Witnesses are also here. Nathricors can help in small numbers versus the Gladius count before it can really balloon out of proportion, but that's not what Hamster has decided to do. He has got nothing that shoots up. He's made Zoryus. Now he's making the Hydras. Spraits finish up and will be a vanguard versus what Neblime is attempting to do, which is tie this series up. Somehow, this hatch has not been discovered, and you know what? Hamster's not going to allow Neblime to get it for free. He's going to go ahead and deploy the Lakes. The witnesses are kind of scattered around the map right now, and one of those Gladiuses got very, very close to being destroyed. Here comes an attempted surround with the Lakes burrowing again. Zoryus helping out so much for gap closing onto this Protoss force, and now the cliff advantage is Hamster's as he routs the Protoss army for now. 4 Gladius up. Wasn't able to finish off one of them. Would have been so good at dealing with that. Another witness arriving at the doorstep of the natural and the third. The ski-back finishing up will be an opportunity for getting those Bactylisks up and running. 10 more Hydras on the way. So much Vespene. Could just go straight to tier 2, but does he dare? The answer is no. 6 Bactylisks on the way. If he saturates that base, we might start to talk about getting up there in the tech. And one of the Bactylisks getting sniped. No return on investment. Zoryus absorbing a lot of those deadly attacks from the Gladius. In small skirmishes that are short-lived, the brute spawn can help. The longer it goes on, the more balls that they end up spawning, the more it ends up hurting. That Ovoleth needs to be held at an arm's length so that it doesn't end up getting chewed up. Remember, it can't burrow like the ground units can, so it can't regenerate HP faster. Some of the Bactylisks are out now, so Neblime going to have to think a little bit harder about taking his fights, picking his battles. A 4th base on the way in the bottom left will keep the economic tempo in his advantage. He's got 30 workers as far as a lead goes, starting to dwindle as Hamster makes more and more, slowly saturating up his natural base. He's got enough Vespene nearly for tier 2. Mineral count getting there as well. It's going to be some time before that activates. Neblime has established a very strong defense here at the ramp. Redundancy pylon onto that engram as well. Will be very, very unlikely for Hamster to be able to crack any of these positions. And the Gladius count up to 9 is going to continue dogging this Zerg force. Couple of shots there. Only a few bounces from the Bactylisks. He ends up losing a single Gladius, but so far it's been quite cost efficient. And remember, even on top of that, the Gladius count is rising 3 per. So we are absolutely seeing some Protoss economic supremacy. The Witness is going to get sniped. That's a good pick for Hamster. But even still, that Ovoleth is going to be next in line. And sure, you end up burrowing, but the Gladiuses are on top of the Bactylisks now, and there was no tier 2 made. This is going to be a huge military loss for Hamster. As soon as you're able to get on top of them with no fear of reprisal, it's going to be it for the Bactylisk stack. Bye-bye, Bactylisks. The lake is darting back home. So many of them, in fact, but really nothing to deal with the air. The air threat just too strong. More Spraits being added in the main. Not enough support here at the 3rd base, though. Back up to 9 Gladiuses. Is it any surprise? Hydra's coming in to try to dissuade this push, but the workers are starting to die. No Witness with them means that the Burrow is actually going to be pretty good at anti-harass. Already lost a number of them. Remorphing the Spraith. Would love a tier 2 right now so you can get that advanced static defense. Neblime going for a 5th base behind this. And Skithricors are going to be the choice du jour. Hamster, he's doing his damnedest to stay in this game after the failed 6 pool led him here. Not quite able to finish the job onto that Hatcherosk. Not really much to bounce on, but you can see how brutal the Gladiuses are being onto the Hydra stack. Just biding his time. 11 skits for a short period of time were massed up, and that one finished right in front of Neblime's face. He knows he's going to have to back out and live to fight another day. The Gladius is a sword used by a skilled swordsman. That's what I'm seeing in this game so far. Crucible, Argosy, likely going to pivot into Empyreans. Needs some kind of anti-splash defense here in the main. Getting a taste of his own medicine when it comes to that. Lake is pushed back by the ramp defense here at the 3rd base for Neblime. Starting to set up his 5th. Remember, the 4th has long since been set up as well. A couple of Auroras are out now. And you know what? With the splash damage from them, you can start to fight these skits a little bit more confidently. But maybe the answer is no. He needs to spread these Gladiuses. They're getting really heavily burst down. Look at that! It's a bit of an air versus air trade. I think there were more skits somewhere, but perhaps not. Maybe they were all massed up for that. I think a lot of the success there comes to the Auroras. So good at softening up those targets with their splash damage when they die. Clearing out top left. The Droleth going to go ahead and try to set up a fourth base, but feels a little bit too little too late. We got 3 Lakers. They're actually moving away just as a Gateway army ends up coming on in to storm the third. And this is a must-hold base for Hamster. He's got no anti-surface defense here. Gets the Lakers down. That's going to force a withdrawal, but now on the other side, stabbing upward. Maybe setting up for a bit of a containment again. Lattice is being added. We're going to see a switch into Vassals, it looks like. Empyrean's on the way. A second Argosy as well. Stopping the top left base from being taken. Hamster will be contained on 3. And Neblime will force the series ahead. 14 Bactylisks are not going to be enough. I'm going to call it here and now. Hamster has been a bit on death's door for a while, but Neblime's on Orthodox style. It might take a little bit to get the job done, but it seems like the most surefire way he knew how. Just watching to make sure that that ordinal base there isn't going to be taken out. Witness with this army. No detection for Hamster. He's going to end up falling away. The Aurora's increasing his attack speed. Now, just as this happens, we've got another strike at the third base. Hamster's army can't be everywhere at once. Bactylisks are slow to move and respond. The air fleet getting a little bit decimated here. Gotta watch out for that. Heavy air, of course, will deal a lot better versus the low armor pen, non-existent really, of the Bactylisk. Empyreans crashing out shots after shots. We got Zealots and Golems to contest with the ground army. Standing atop the lake is, and with the Witness empowering them further. It doesn't look like that base is actually going to hold. Now falling back, the Empyreans still very full of vitality. Reinforcements going to try to soften up this army attacking the third base, but it's done its job. The Bactylisks have to retreat. They've mostly cleared out the workers at the third base, forcing a bit of an evacuation. Top left going to be retaken, likely to be stepped on. Still has cliff advantage. Going to be intercepting this army as it comes on back. The Empyrean's kind of lagging behind, but a smaller splinter force has managed to make it all the way up to the top left. So once again, clearing out the top left base. It looks like it won't even be canceled, so further loss on investment. Neblime has a lot of minerals he could be spending. He's going to go ahead and stab out the third. The Empyrean's just not able to be taken care of in the meanwhile. Looks like this force will continue to slow down some of these units. Hamster trying to respond in kind. This Gateway army not actually pushing forward to try to hit the hatch. You can see a lot of what Hamster has is kind of being brought to all the different sides as the Empyreans are now up to a massive 4. And look at that, the Dracodons brought a bunch of the Zets over. They're going to go ahead and clean those up, leaving this ground army a lot harder for Hamster to deal with. He's getting his tier 2 now. This Hydra count, it's not so deadly. Feels like Neblime could actually continue to fight this, but the engram on the high ground is going to dissuade Hamster surely. He definitely can't stand and fight this. There's more Empyreans where that came from, my friend. Trying to dive forward, using the Zorius to speed up the backs, trying to deal with some of their weaknesses, but that's not going to be it. And a 5th base is too much. Denial on the 3rd for so damn long. Hamster had no footing in that game. And Neblime might have made a meal out of it, but so too is a meal made out of the whole damn series. We're going to game 5. Because of course we are, ladies and gentlemen. I simultaneously predicted this could be a tight series going to 4 or 5 games, and also a quick series. And besides that last game, I mean, so far, I think we're on course for that. Let's see if Neblime can close it. I tell you guys all the time, don't count them out until it's absolutely over. Big surprise here. Or is there no surprise? Paradise cross spawns. Hamster, Russian green Zerg in the top right. And Neblime, Australian, and also, I guess, dark olive Protoss in the bottom left. Ah, Beaster Brown. He's had some very hard colors to pull, I'm going to say. I always struggle with that one. We'll see what Hamster has in store for us. He had a number of really smart parries, with the Skithercores really rending down the Gladius count, but that was already after he had sustained so much damage. And Neblime wants to win with a unorthodox composition unto himself. Though I will give him some credit, right? As Hamster goes for the early pool here yet again. Looks like an 8 into a Kagrant. I gotta give Neblime some credit. He said before that Hamster likes to win in style or whatever because he wants to show off cool things. And so his goal is not necessarily just to win, but to, you know, show cool games, good games, etc. Maybe that's changed a little bit as Hamster's gotten more and more experience under his belt. But when it comes to what Neblime was doing, he's got this very, this style that I think hit him up and Arbus have both called cute in the past. He just plays very differently. He tries to be very fancy with his unit compositions. And maybe it's not that he's trying to be, and that's just how he genuinely thinks you play the best. Like, you get the best comp by doing that. But he just does things that are so unorthodox that other Protoss players simply don't do. Like make Empyreans. And indeed, Legionnaires. One of them moving out here to help the scouting, it looks like. A third gate. Okay, so just as Hamster went for that 6 pool in the last game, Neblime going for a similarly flavored build here. The 3-gate opener with massive Legionnaires. He's basically doing the Check Stealer run back, and he has figured out where his opponent is, courtesy of this scout. It will end up being brought on down, but it scouts more gas being harvested. 4th gate. The IQ ballooning. The brain cells increasing. I did set it to extra brain cells after all, and the Legionnaires are just going to get more and more numerous. Now, from that Droleth's POV, he scouts 3-gate. He has no idea of which Neblime's intellect is rising, the degree to which Neblime is expanding his mind. We could see the 4-gate Legionnaire build. I saw Hapsea stream a game versus AOT and he beat him with that. Therefore, Protoss needs to be nerfed, and Neblime's about to demonstrate it right here and right now. The Shroud on the way. It's not a bad pivot, but I feel like this amount of Legionnaires is surely going to defeat this amount of Quas. We've got 1 pair of Zets being made behind this. Hamster is not reinforcing very swiftly. Now switching into some Ecclesiasts. Neblime going to continue to power up his army. I suppose if he waits long enough for the Ecclesiasts to get across the map, we might see the Lakes come out. But with a little bit of moves here from Neblime, he's actually going to go ahead and dissuade the Zets from moving out. So Hamster's going to be kind of in the dark as to what this is like. Well, now he's going to give an opportunity to move a little bit deeper in. So many Legionnaires. Dude, there's going to be more Legionnaires than there are Quas. And Hamster's making workers behind this. His Shroud nearing 80% completion. Neblime, what are you doing, my man? Adding a lattice. Of course. Adding more production to this. Seems like the answer. Feels like he could definitely dive this ramp. Does he trust himself? Does he believe in the heart of the units? The answer is no. He's moving to 12 o'clock for some reason. Hamster has saved up quite a bit of minerals. Not quite enough gas for the 3 Lakes start that he usually likes. Accounting for those 2 Zeths, finally. Seeing that there's still nothing at the natural. Neblime was supposed to usher in an age of Protoss nerfs, but instead he has held his tongue. He knows he'd rather lose this game than get his race nerfed. JK. Zori's coming out. In all seriousness, Hamster is now kind of swung this into his own little bit of favor. Neblime does have a pretty deadly Legionnaire stack, so if this army is red to have left the army, like left the area, the Legionnaires can just come in and for a backstab. That seems to be what Neblime is planning for. But he doesn't have any confirmation scout at the sort of entrance to the natural, so he's kind of just have to play this by feel. Falling back to his main ramp, he has no detection. He's adding a Warden and a redundancy pylon. Does he want to go for it now? He's going to go ahead and maybe block this Droleth and see what units are actually here to dissuade the worker from making things happen. And yeah, I mean, I think these Legionnaires, as soon as they spot this army over here, good pick on that Lake this could be the shining moment. This could be something, but Neblime pulls back. Never mind. I'll save the epic line that I had planned for later. Trying to get onto that Lake only one of them. Now here comes the dive with the Legionnaires. We've got 3 Lakes started, 1 pair of Quas. Azorius half finished. This is big problems here for Hamster. And all of his Zets nary. All of his Zets are completely out. Now the Legionnaires wreaking havoc in the mineral line. Hamster has got to drill onto them and see what he can do to get rid of this threat in his base. And I feel like maybe the answer is not much. Transferring over to the resources in the natural. Zets spawning. They're just going to get absolutely impaled. With the Lakers coming online, feels like maybe Neblime can be good for a couple additional worker kills. And once again, get himself very far ahead. Look at that. He might have even stopped that Lakers. But instead, bit of a poor targeting move. Doesn't end up getting it with all of his legions. Embassy on the way for detection. Checks out. Up to 6 Lakers now for Hamster. If his gambit with them doesn't work out, he's not making workers, staying at 12 workers. Perhaps a page out of the Cannoli book. Can't remember if it was 10 or 12 workers when he was defeating Terrans, like, or attempting to beat Shopkeeper Dog in the Gauntlet, and did defeat the Shambler at one point. Good burrows there on the Zorus even, just to keep it from being focused down. And Neblime, his micro being tested to an extreme degree. One of his Ecclesiasts falling to speed everything else up. And now, look at that, a finishing shot on one of those Lakers. He wants to see if he can just stand on him to reveal him. There's so many of them, but the focus fire is not quite there. I think this is the coronating moment for our Protoss player. He clears out all but one Lakizalisk. Might be good for a couple more hits. A couple of Zets. That's all that separates this Lakers from its demise. We've got more coming, but Hamster has nothing behind this, and Neblime building a Nexus, adding more and more units to his retinue. He needs only to make a decisive push into Hamster's territory. And this will be 3-2 in favor of the Protoss. The Ecclesiasts trying to keep them alive versus all the Zeths. The flank is good. The Drakodin softened up from earlier. Who needs to push V when you can push Z? Hamster asking that question as we speak, but Zealots are on the way to try and assist. Sure, some sped up Drakodins have ended up falling. Can Neblime rally the troops? He's got the Ecclesiasts continuing. There's 14 more Zeths on the way. But now, with more units rallying across, the momentary pause gone. That Hacharosk is earmarked for defeat. Oh, you gotta watch out for the cliff advantage Lakers. They end up claiming the life of one of those Drakodins. That could have been a nice little bit of salvo to open up onto those Lakers before the fight actually happens. Neblime with the detection is going to be more than happy to deal with that last Lakers. He doesn't really have the firepower to deal with that one on the top, it doesn't feel like, but no, Hamster calls it. He sees the detection. He sees what Neblime is able to do. It's over. 3-2. Neblime makes it into the grand final, showing some weakness, but Hamster not able to capitalize quite yet. Would you believe it? A Protoss in the grand final. Clearly OP. What do you guys say? The grand final man? The grand final man? Are we about to talk to the grand final man? I think so. Neblime, my man, congratulations. You have made it into the grand final.
Thank you.
It was looking a bit dicey, but like I keep telling people, and like I even said versus Top Ramen in the hype video, you never count Neblime out before the series is over. How were you feeling when you were down 2-1 facing elimination and you had to claw back on Genesis Y of all maps? Was the 6 pool a gift?
Yeah, absolutely. That was just a free win. I mean, I'm not going to make any bones about it. When I saw he'd actually made the Zephyrs, I'm like, oh, nice. I'm going to get this one, you know? I mean, it lasted a pretty long while because, he played pretty conservatively, which was smart, so I wasn't really able to just crush. But, I just kind of kept the lead and extended as I generally tend to do. But yeah, I was surprised to go down 2-1, but I didn't really get nervous. I mean, like you said, I'm sort of strongest when I'm down 2 matches, so
Sure.
it was fine. When I hit that point, I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess I better, knuckle down now. But I was trying different stuff. When I know that my strongest play is just to go 4 gates, right? As you saw, it's just the most versatile. Just having a lot of Ecclesias is pretty good, it turns out. Thanks, Arbors, for showing us the way.
There it is.
So, at that point, you sort of just knuckle down. You go, all right, I'm just going to play what seems to work. And I knew he would probably be going Lickizalist. What I did not expect was in that first game, that big fight we had, I really thought I was going to win that. Sorry, not the first game. Blackwater Bastion, was that the first game?
Yeah, the one where you went into his lake and I wonder if you didn't count them because you obviously didn't have the detection.
Yeah.
He had
I
like
really
9
thought I
of
was
them,
gonna
so he
win.
just eviscerated your Ecclesias ball, right?
Yeah. Because I had the golems up front, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's doing damage. I sort of looked away, looked back, I'm like, oh my god, it's all gone, So those clues look pretty good. They are pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. And not very many Zergs use them, just like not very many Protoss use Legionnaires, Empyreans. There's some unit choices you made that, I mean, chat's being very critical of, and I've only heard bad things about for so long, but here you are, the shining
Empyreans
exemplar.
are like the counter to Bactylists, by the way. They actually counter Bactylists. Obviously, you can't just have 2 of them because there's going to get run under and destroyed. But you have a big army and you have a bunch of Empyreans with them, you can do a Bactylist easy. But you gotta take time to build up a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so interesting lessons learned there. I also thought on Genesis Y, when you had all of your Gladiuses and you got to that magic point where your ground army was not neglected at any point, you kept reinforcing it, and you managed to get right on top of the Gladius, or on the Bactylisk rather, and defeat him with Gladius. That is a cool moment because I know that the Bactylisk is like the scourge of anybody who plays against Zerg. They always talk about how powerful that unit is, and not without good reason, right? But to see the Gladius, which is also kind of like a similar kind of unit where a lot of people who struggle versus Protoss might complain about that unit, to see the fight of the 2 of them, and sometimes the Bactylisks were looking good, and then other times the Gladius came in and stormed the place. There's some cool back and forth there, right?
Do you recall our last match? He was bringing the Gladius mass, which was pretty effective, and I was using the mass skiff. I feel like he's learned from me well. You saw he brought that out.
Yep.
Even though he was in a very bad situation in that game already, the mass skiff, as you saw, was effective at just negating that Gladius ball. So it was a good move at the time. So I don't know. It's like we've both learned from each other. We're doing the same thing the other used to be doing,
Absolutely the case, yeah. So you move on past Hamster narrowly. I will just point out, this actually happened in, I can't remember which tournament it was. I think it was actually in the lower bracket of Tyrant's Tale, or was it a Crop 1, where you had a situation where you went, it was 3-0, then 3-1, then 3-2, and then you're like, oh no, the loss count keeps going up. Yeah, so
then let's find a flawless victory in the finals.
Right. Well, the same thing happens here where, in Acropolis 1, the upper final was you versus Shambler, you 3-0 him, and then you 4-0 him in the grand final. Now here in Acropolis 2, it's a bit different, right? You've had to work for it a bit harder. Top Ramen, some hard-fought games, even though you ended up beating him in the strategic layer, and that was a 3-0 victory for you. You 3-1 hit him up. Nobody had that on their bingo card, besides you maybe. And then, of course, 3-2 versus Hamster, putting up a fight in the matchup to get into that grand final. Could be the start of your coronation, the three-peat, the guy who's won with every single race, you can say, until, of course, the Escosi drops, and you got to perfunctorily play that as a result. How are you feeling about your odds, and who do you think you'll be facing in the lower bracket? As a reminder, the names are Top Ramen versus Ayud 64 playing Sunday, and then, of course, Hit 'em Up versus the Shambler playing tomorrow. And then, at some point next week, we're going to have Hamster to be decided as well. Who do you think? Is it going to be a rematch, or is it going to be somebody new? What are you thinking?
Well, just to correct you there, I won't be facing anyone in the lower bracket, but yeah, I you know what I'm going to say. It's got to be Hit, right? It's hard to imagine anyone else coming through. It's not necessarily a done deal, but it's going to be tough for anyone to take him out, I think. I haven't really seen him struggle in any matchup, except I guess versus me so far.
Yeah, that's definitely a feature, right? Is what's going to happen with Hit 'em Up. Everybody seems to still say, yeah, I think you're just going to win this tournament, dude, even though he's in the lower bracket. And now the person who knocked him there is going to wait for him in the grand final. I wasn't sure how to call this series, admittedly, and I think it's kind of borne out by the fact that the series is close. I knew that it would be a hotly contested one, 3-1 or 3-2. I also thought it would be pretty fast. And you know what? Interviews included, we're just now crossing the 90-minute mark on the stream, which means the actual game time was probably about an hour for a 5-game set. Some of those games very, very fast. Your Chick Stealer one, you got to keep those secrets close to the chest, unless the secret was just make Legionnaire, which
no, that's the secret. That's the secret. You notice I went double 8 gate, so you're cutting a bit. Obviously, as Protoss, there isn't really any cheese you can do with gateways, because all you're really doing is just getting them a little faster, but it does make a difference, as you saw, because that first fight, I had the 3 Legionnaires versus, the 6 cores, I think it was. And, if it's a little later, you don't want to engage like 8 or 10 cores, you might lose Legionnaire. But hey, I picked 1 and then pulled back, which is a big deal, and then came in, and, it's a fine line. So I was really hoping for 6 pull, because on check still, obviously, that's supposed to be strong, since there's no ramp or anything. But not having 6 pull is still fine, as you saw. You just make a bunch of Legionnaires and go, that's my check stealer plays revealed.
And exactly what you can expect the next time. It definitely won't involve any Star Sovereigns or anything if he picks it versus whoever faces him in that grand final. We will cast our looks over to that lower bracket just to remind you guys. 2 of these series, Elimination 2A, Elimination 2B, they will be played tomorrow and the day after. So this weekend still has plenty more Cosmonarchy action for you. We're going to begin on the right side of the bracket, which means that we're going to be looking at Hit 'em Up versus the Shambler tomorrow. Going to be a grudge match to end all grudge matches. Looking forward to it.
I don't think I can handle that level of salt.
yeah, and of course, I know you're going to be rooting for the clan ass member, your ass mate, so to speak.
That said, it would be awfully convenient if it got eliminated. Then I'd be kind of leaning back, honestly. I mean, I did say about Hamster, and I think I was right, that you got to be wary of him. He doesn't seem like a threat, but look at him go, right? He's had a very good run so far, and not to say he's not going to come back in the upper final. But I mean, look, he's up here in the upper final. We went 3-2. Hamster is a considerable threat, but still, if Hit 'em Up got eliminated, I would be kind of sitting back going like, all right, my chances are good.
Yeah. I mean, I know you were also looking for that rematch versus Ayud 64. If that happens, it would have to be in the grand final after he defeats Ramen, whoever wins between Hit 'em Up and Shambler, and of course Hamster in that lower final. So that would be a storied run unto its own. And I will remind you guys that we do enter, I don't know what the official term is I guess you could call it rush hour or something. When we get to the next week, normally, so far, everybody has had a week to prepare for their eventual match. We've had that nice bit of grace period. Next week is the final week of the tournament. So after Elimination 2A and 2B get played later on in this weekend, we will have Elimination 3 on Thursday, the lower final on Friday, and Championship Saturday as opposed to Sunday because, well, let's just say if Hit 'em Up does make it there, we got to keep the schedule open considering he's not available on Sundays. That will be on Saturday as well for the grand final. So you're looking at that and you're thinking to yourself, if it might not be the same endurance run where Hamster had to beat, iSarcasm 3-1, Shambler 3-1, and then almost beat you. It was a 4-3 set. That was back Ascension 7. That
was rough.
Very different story. And that was all in one day, right? So everybody looked at Hamster and thought, God damn, what a legend. He doesn't need to go through all of that this time around, but whoever ends up making it into the Elimination 3 match and then winning, they've got to then the very next day wake up and do it again in the lower final. And if they make it successful there, then they've got to do it again the very next day in the grand final. So some adjustments to the format. We've been adjusting it as, every tournament basically has been something new and different. And so no surprises there that we got something different here. But just wanted to give that as a bit of a PSA and also let you guys know you can expect that next week. So it will be the exciting conclusion of the tournament. That being said, honestly, as much as I really like the idea of a grudge match that goes the distance, I do think that Hit 'em Up will probably dismiss Shambler. That being said, the second of the 2 elimination series, Ayud 64 versus Ramen, they met before. It was 2-1 in favor of Ramen, and all the games apparently were quite close. So if that's like the little precursor, I had never casted that series. I will probably go back and do that before I get the chance to see this series. Maybe if I have enough time to do so, maybe like the morning of or whatever, I might be able to take a look at it. Maybe not cast it, maybe just at least research it or something. We'll see how that goes. But I'd love to see how that ends up evolving. The Terran Mirror, we haven't actually seen it in playoffs play, like a sort of series play yet in the tournament since the Gauntlets, right? So high stakes matches and a nice little rematch of the Gauntlet to look at it. So I like that. I think it's going to be cool.
Yep. Look, I'm excited to see that one because, yeah, I agree that Hit 'em Up, obviously. I mean, do I even need to say it? He's really favored in the Shambler match. Although, I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like Shambler has been playing really well. Like he's playing better than he ever has, I think.
Oh, in practice games, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I've been practicing with everyone. I'm literally looking at everyone on this board except AOT. I guess No, I did play against AOT as well. Literally practiced with all of them over the last week. So I feel like I have a good handle on most people's games. EUD also looking pretty strong. I don't know what his TBT is like. It did not look that good in the last tournament. I did not think it was that scary. His TBT, that is, but his TBP seems pretty good. So if he gets through, definitely a threat as well. It's what you said, that I had a bit of a tough time so far in this run. It's true. This tournament, like I said at the very start, is just so much higher skill level than the Acropolis one. No matter who comes through here, I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah, I had this very lengthy podcast basically because these days I don't have so much time to do all the prototype stuff. So instead what I've been doing for the donators is recording 20 to 30 minute recordings of me just walking and just finding time to give a little bit of podcast spoken word content out there. And for 20 minutes out of the last 30-minute one, I spent there talking about how I think by response of the rankings, so to speak, because we do rank the players, I think Cannoli actually has to be class 2 after this tournament is wrapped up, just based on the people that he beat to get here and stuff, and how that might be seen as a big outlier or whatever. And the more I thought about it, even though he didn't have a great showing versus Aoud and perhaps a better but still lacking showing versus the Shambler, the fact that he's gone the strategic route is really cool as a foil to everybody else who's trying to be a bit more focused on the mechanical side. And in that way, actually, he's kind of similar to the Shambler, but doesn't have the greatest mechanics, but maybe pads that with the Exodia strat, with the different ideas that he's got with all the different tech, and he's got this flow chart of things to do, where as long as he's not put off balance by something, he can just endure for a surprising amount of time and then get to a winning position on the map, right? So there's things like that I find interesting to look at similarity wise. You might argue that, AOT, Cannoli, maybe arguably the Shambler, they're not necessarily the strongest of players, but no, I think for our returning players, which are most of these guys, they have significantly had to improve their skills in order to compete or to keep staying at their current level. And for the new guy, in this case Cannoli, it was a pretty big deal for him to get in there and mix it up. And I think it shows an interesting avenue of skill expression that we kind of overlook or say that's secondary to the mechanical skill. And while I would generally agree with that as well, it was interesting to see Cannoli change people's minds about that. And of course, I just checked PayPal, so thanks for that. Rigging another series for you. Don't worry.
Don't thank me. I'm taking it back.
So, yeah, that's right.
I think it's true. Cannoli, it's a pretty impressive run. Honestly, his first time to get in and get up to playoffs. So I don't think he should be disappointed at all. I think it's very good. And I'm just looking at this, getting eliminated by the Shambler. I mean, Shambler's a veteran man. It takes a lot to not get eliminated by him. Although, I do disagree with you that he should be class 1, because I think execution is more important than strategy in this game.
No, class 2, not class 1. He's
you
probably
do think class 2.
I think he's got to be at the very bottom of that. Because as a reminder, I had initially seeded him as class 3 before getting into the tournament, and class 3s don't get posted on the rankings board. I feel like he's at the very bottom end of class 2 just because of the scalps he's taken, right? So
yeah, he's played well. He's played well. I agree. For sure. Well, I guess everyone else here is class 1. I'm looking at the elimination bracket anyway. That's true for sure. I mean, it makes sense, right? We're in the final stage of the tournament. Are you going to add a class 0?
People keep saying that I should do that for the champion.
I guess that's just the champion role, isn't it?
That's right. I really want to see what happens tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to that TVT match. I feel like for a tournament that has almost no Protosses, certainly a lot of Zergs, and a decent number of Terrans, we've avoided it in series play so far. So I'm looking forward to that. Neblime, you are the reigning champion of Acropolis 1. You find yourself back, perhaps in your rightful place in the grand final. Do you have any closing words or thoughts before we send ourselves out of here?
Yeah, I'm awaiting whoever comes. I'm ready for anybody. As you saw, I can take Hit 'em Up, and I mean, who else is there? If it's not Hit 'em Up, it's just easy mode.
See, there it is. Easy mode, and then hit 'em up makes it like you set the difficulty from easy to
A
medium.
fair fight.
You know? Oh, I see.
It'll be a fair fight. You know?
There we go. All right. Well, Neblime thinks it would be a fair fight to face hit 'em up, and anybody else is just a slight obstacle. We'll see if he's true to his word. As we get into things a little bit deeper into the tournament, we're entering that final stretch. Thanks for joining us, guys. We, of course, will be back tomorrow for some more Cosmonarchy action. Don't miss it.